The alarm started at 0400 station time. Commander Thalrix jerked awake in his quarters aboard the monitoring station, his three eyes adjusting to the flashing red emergency lights. Something had triggered the deep space sensors, and whatever it was, the station's artificial intelligence deemed it worthy of waking the entire command staff. He rushed to the command center, his forelegs carrying him faster than most species could run. The other officers were already there, staring at the main display screen with expressions that ranged from confusion to outright fear. Dr. Velshar, the station's lead xenobiologist, was manipulating the holographic controls with her tentacles, trying to make sense of the readings. Report, Thalrix commanded, settling into his command chair. We detected a massive energy signature at the edge of Sector 9, the tactical officer Krioth said. His voice was steady, but his skin had shifted to a pale blue, a sign of stress in his species. Initial classification rated it as a Class 15 threat. Thalrix felt his blood run cold. That's impossible. Run the diagnostics again. The sensors must be malfunctioning. We've run them 3 times, sir, Velshar said quietly. The readings are consistent. There's a vessel out there, and it's unlike anything in our database. The Galactic Council had maintained peace for over 10,000 years, partly because they knew exactly what every member species could build. The threat classification system ranged from Class 1, a simple transport ship, to Class 8, a dreadnought capable of destroying a small fleet. No one had ever built anything beyond Class 8 because the Council treaties forbade it, and more importantly, because the physics and engineering required were thought to be impossible. Class 15 shouldn't exist. Show me, Thalrix said. The main screen shifted to display the sensor data. At first, it looked like a small moon had somehow appeared in deep space. But as the computer enhanced the image, the shape became clearer. It was a ship, massive beyond comprehension, its hull covered in plating that seemed to absorb their sensor beams rather than reflect them. The design was brutal and angular, lacking the flowing curves and artistic touches that marked Galactic Council architecture. Energy readings? Thalrix asked. Off the scale, sir. The reactor must be generating enough power to light up an entire solar system. And the weapon signatures we're detecting suggest firepower capable of destroying a planetary defense fleet in minutes. Thalrix made a decision. Send a priority message to Council headquarters. Include all sensor data. Then prepare the luminous decree for launch. We need to investigate this directly. Within an hour, the science vessel was ready. The luminous decree was a small ship by galactic standards, designed for exploration and first contact scenarios rather than combat. Thalrix hoped that whoever built that monster out there would see them as non-threatening. The journey took 6 hours at maximum hyperspace speed. As they dropped back into normal space, the massive vessel filled their view screens. Up close, it was even more intimidating. The hull was dark gray, almost black, with no visible windows or decorative elements. Weapon ports dotted the surface like pockmarks on ancient stone. Scan for life signs, Thalrix ordered. Reading multiple biosignatures, sir? At least 3,000 individuals aboard. The genetic patterns are unfamiliar, not matching any species in our database. Open a communication channel. All frequencies. There was a moment of static. Then the screen flickered to life. The being that appeared made Thalrix's breath catch in his throat. It was bipedal, tall and lean, with only 2 eyes positioned on the front of its face, a predator's configuration. Its skin was smooth and tan, covered partially by a dark uniform marked with symbols that the translator couldn't identify. Dark hair was cut short above a face that seemed to display emotions similar to Council species, yet fundamentally different. Greetings, the being said. The translator struggled for a moment before settling on a rendering in Council standard. This is Captain Hayon of the TDFS Indomitable. You're a long way from Council space. I am Commander Thalrix of the Galactic Council science vessel Luminous Decree. We detected your vessel and came to investigate. Your ship registers as a Class 15 on our threat assessment scale. No known species has the capability to construct such a vessel. Captain Hayon smiled, an expression that showed teeth. In most species, displaying teeth was a threat gesture. Well, Commander, I suppose that makes us an unknown species, then. Would you and your crew like to come aboard? We can discuss this over dinner. The casual invitation shocked Thalrix more than a weapons lock would have. This being commanded a ship capable of reducing planets to asteroids, yet invited strangers to dinner as if they were old friends meeting at a station cafe. That would be acceptable, Thalrix said carefully. We'll dock at your convenience. Perfect. I'll have our docking bay prepare for your arrival. Fair warning, though, our gravity is set at 1.2 standard units. Some species find it uncomfortable. We can adjust it in the areas you'll be visiting if needed. No need Thalrix's lead. 1.2 standard was crushingly heavy for his species, but he didn't want to show weakness. The communication ended. Velshar turned to him, her skin color shifting to worried purple. Sir, this could be dangerous. We know nothing about these beings, which is exactly why we need to make contact. If they meant us harm, we'd already be dead. That ship could have vaporized us the moment we dropped out of hyperspace. That's not as comforting as you think it is, sir, Kriath muttered. The docking procedure was smooth, almost too smooth. The Indomitable's systems interfaced with their ship perfectly, as if they'd studied Council technology extensively. As the airlock cycled open, Thalrix and his team stepped into the corridor beyond. The first thing he noticed was the weight. Even though Captain Hayon had warned them, actually experiencing the increased gravity was crushing. Each step felt like he was carrying an extra person on his back. Velshar was struggling even more, her tentacles moving sluggishly. The second thing he noticed was the being waiting to escort them. Another of the same species as Captain Hayon, this one female, if his understanding of the uniform markings was correct. She was shorter, but moved with the same confident grace, despite the heavy gravity. "Welcome aboard the Indomitable," she said. "I'm Commander Murray, second officer. Captain Huyan is waiting in the dining hall. If you'll follow me." As they walked through the corridors, Thalrix observed everything with the eye of a trained military officer. The walls were thick, reinforced, designed to withstand tremendous punishment. Crew members they passed moved easily in the high gravity, some carrying equipment that should have required mechanical assistance for beings their size. They passed a viewport, and Thalrix glimpsed other ships nearby. Not as large as the Indomitable, but each one is Elite Class 10 or above. An entire fleet hidden in the darkness of deep space. What had the Council stumbled upon? And more importantly, what were these beings planning with all this military power? The dining hall was enormous, designed to accommodate hundreds of crew members at once. Long tables stretched across the room, most of them empty at this hour. Captain Huyn sat at one near the center, several other crew members beside him. They all stood as the Council team entered, a gesture of respect that surprised Thalrix. "Commander Thalrix, please, sit." Captain Hayon gestured to the chairs across from him. The chairs were designed for bipedal beings, and Thalrix had to adjust awkwardly to accommodate his four-legged body structure. Beside him, Velshar simply settled onto the floor, unable to use the furniture at all. "I apologize for the accommodations," Captain Han said. "We don't often entertain visitors from the Council. Actually, you're the first ones we've officially invited aboard. You've had contact with the Council before?" Thalrix asked. "In a manner of speaking, but let's eat first, then we'll talk. You've had a long journey, and hospitality demands we feed our guests." Crew members brought out trays of food. Thalrix recognized none of it. The smells were strange, some pleasant, others sharp and aggressive. Captain Hayan took a piece of what looked like cooked animal flesh and began eating. The casual consumption of meat made Velshar's tentacles curl in distaste. Most civilized species had moved beyond predatory eating habits millennia ago. One of the crew members, introduced as Engineer Day, was eating something that made Thalrix's sensors spike with alarm. The chemical analysis showed capsaicin levels that would be classified as a pain-inducing weapon by Council standards. "You're eating poison?" Velshar blurted out. Unable to contain herself, Day looked up, surprised, then laughed. It was a warm, genuine sound. "Oh, the peppers. Yeah, I guess they're pretty spicy. But that's what makes them good. Don't worry, we've brought you something from our database of Council-safe foods." They placed dishes in front of the Council team. The food was bland, but nutritious, prepared to match their dietary requirements. The fact that these beings had that information was concerning. "You've studied us," Thalric stated. "Of course," Commander Murray said. "You've been broadcasting into space for thousands of years. We'd be foolish not to listen. Then you know about the Galactic Council. You know about our laws, our treaties, our territory?" "That we do," Captain Hand confirmed. He set down his eating utensil and met Thalric's central eye directly. "Let me tell you a story, Commander. About 400 years ago, a Council exploration ship discovered our world. They cataloged it, sent probes, took samples. Do you know what they classified it as? I don't have access to exploration records from that far back. They called it Earth. Catalog number 5-5-7-9. Class 12 Deathworld. Unsuitable for intelligent life. They noted some interesting radio signals, but determined they must be natural phenomena because nothing could evolve sentience on a planet that hostile. The words hung in the air. A Class 12 Deathworld. The Council classification for habitable planets only went up to 10, with 10 being the absolute limit of where life could theoretically develop. Anything beyond that was considered a toxic hell where evolution couldn't produce complex organisms, let alone intelligence. "That's impossible," Belshar whispered. "You're saying you evolved on a Class 12 world?" "We call it home," Hayone said simply. 97% surface water, tectonic plates that shift constantly, causing earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, an atmosphere that produces violent storms with wind speeds that can level buildings, temperature variations from freezing to boiling across different regions, and gravity that you're currently struggling with, even though this is just 20% higher than our standard. And you claim to have evolved intelligence there? Thalrix couldn't keep the skepticism from his voice. Captain Hune stood up and walked to a wall panel, activating a holographic display. Images appeared, showing a blue and green world that looked beautiful from space but hostile up close. Massive storms swirled across the surface. Volcanic eruptions lit up the night side. Ocean waves the size of mountains crashed against coastlines. "Not just intelligence," Heon said quietly. "Civilization, art, music, philosophy, science. We went from making fire to splitting atoms in 10,000 years. From simple tools to spacecraft in less than a century once we really got started." "The Council should have made contact," Thalric said. "First contact protocols require what?" Commander Murray interrupted, her voice sharp. "Require contact with species the Council deems worthy? Your protocols have a clause, Commander. Species from Class 8 worlds or higher are not approached for first contact. They're quarantined and monitored from a distance. We were judged and found wanting before we even knew you existed." The accusation stung because Thalrix knew it was true. The Council had strict policies about which species were invited to join. It was for everyone's safety, or so they claimed. Species from harsh worlds were considered too aggressive, too dangerous, too unpredictable for civilized society. "So you built all this in secret?" Thalrix gestured vaguely at the ship around them. "This vessel alone represents technology beyond anything the Council has achieved." "We weren't alone," Heon said. He manipulated the holographic display, and new images appeared. Other beings, other species, each one looking as dangerous as humans. Meet the Terran Deathworld Federation. When humanity reached the stars, we found others like us, species that your Council had rejected or ignored. The Krath, from a high-gravity volcanic world. The Norde, from a frozen moon with atmospheric storms. The Verak, from a planet with crushing atmospheric pressure and acidic rain. The images showed worlds that made Thalrix's skin crawl. No sane being would want to visit those places, let alone live there. Yet here was proof that intelligence had evolved on each one. "We found each other," Hune continued, "and we recognized something in each other that the Council couldn't understand. We were survivors. Every single day of our existence, our planets tried to kill us. Whether predators, diseases, natural disasters, everything was a threat. We didn't evolve in paradise, Commander. We evolved in hell, and it made us strong. It's made you dangerous," Krieth said quietly. It was the first time the young tactical officer had spoken during the meeting, Isaion admitted. It did. But dangerous isn't the same as evil. We're not conquerors, Commander. We're builders. Look around this ship. Yes, it's a warship. Yes, it can destroy fleets. But it's also a home for 3,000 souls of 5 different species, all working together. The Krath engineer and the human technician you saw laughing together earlier, they're friends. Best friends, actually. Their children play together in the nursery. Belshar made a sound of surprise. You have children aboard a warship? It's not just a warship, Myray explained. It's a generation ship, a research vessel, a mobile city. We're explorers, Commander. We're scientists and artists and families. We just happen to also be very, very good at defending ourselves. Thalrix processed this information. Everything he'd been taught about Deathworld species suggested they should be violent, unstable, impossible to integrate into civilized society. Yet here was proof that they could not only cooperate, but thrive together. Why reveal yourselves now? He asked. You could have remained hidden. Captain Hyan's expression grew serious. Because hiding time is over. The galaxy is about to change, Commander. And when it does, your council is going to need friends who know how to fight. Before Thalrix could ask what that meant, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Not emergency alarms, but notification chimes. Hyan glanced at his wrist device and smiled grimly. Speaking of which, more friends just arrived. Come, let me introduce you to Admiral Hagen and the rest of the fleet. As they walked toward the observation deck, Thalrix felt a deep sense of unease. The galaxy he knew, the safe and orderly civilization of the Council, suddenly felt very small and very fragile. And these Deathworlders, these impossible beings from impossible worlds, were about to change everything. The observation deck offered a panoramic view of space, and what Thalrix saw there made his heart skip several beats. Ships were arriving through hyperspace portals, dozens of them, each one massive and bristling with weapons. They moved with coordinated precision, taking up defensive positions around the Indomitable like a pack of predators protecting their alpha. 10 dreadnoughts, 12 battlecruisers, and 38 support vessels, Kriyoth whispered, his tactical training automatically cataloging the threat. Commander, that's enough firepower to conquer half the Council territories. Or to defend them, Captain Hyan said quietly. He'd heard the comment despite Kriya's attempt at discretion. Admiral Hagen commands the 3rd Defense Fleet. She's been patrolling this sector for the past 3 months. A new holographic display activated, showing a woman in a crisp military uniform. She was older than Captain Hyan, with silver streaking through her dark hair and eyes that looked like they'd seen too much. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of absolute authority. Captain Han, status report. All quiet, Admiral. Our guests from the Galactic Council are aboard. I believe formal introductions are now necessary. Admiral Hagen's eyes focused on Thalrix through the hologram. For a long moment, she simply studied him, and he felt like a specimen under examination. Finally, she nodded. Commander Thalrix. I've read your service record. 40 years in the Council Exploration Service. Decorated for first contact with 3 species, known for diplomatic solutions rather than military ones. A good choice to send to investigate us? Have access to Council databases? Thalrix felt a chill run down his spine. You've had access for decades, Commander. Your security is excellent by Council standards. But your Council has never faced an intelligence agency designed by beings who evolved to hunt and hide from apex predators. We learned subterfuge from nature itself. Velshar's tentacles were turning bright orange with agitation. This is an act of war. Infiltrating Council systems, stealing classified information. We stole nothing, Admiral Hagen said calmly. We observed. We listened. Your species broadcasts everything into space, holds meetings on open channels, stores data on networks connected to public systems. We simply paid attention. If that's an act of war, then perhaps your species should reconsider what information you make accessible. She had a point, Thalrix realized with discomfort. The Council had been operating under the assumption that they were the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. They'd never considered that someone might be watching them the way researchers watch animals in a habitat. Tell me about your Federation, Thalric said, steering the conversation to safer ground. How many species are members? What are your goals? Captain Heian gestured, and the holographic display shifted to show a star map. Dozens of systems were highlighted in blue, forming a loose cluster that ran parallel to Council space, but didn't overlap it. The Terran Deathworld Federation currently has 7 member species, Heian explained. Humans from Earth, the Krath from Burning Stone, the Norday from Icewind, the Verak from Acid Crown, the Jessie from Deep Pressure, the Korin from Radiation Plains, and the Sulak from Toxic Garden. Each species comes from a world that your council rated as uninhabitable for intelligent life. 7 civilizations that shouldn't exist, Velshar muttered. Yet we do, a new voice rumbled. A massive being entered the observation deck, sleek 3 times the mass of a human, with rock-like skin that glowed faintly with internal heat. This was a Krath, Thalrix realized. I am Bora, Chief Engineering Officer. You seem surprised that Deathworlders can cooperate. Council being... I admit our understanding of your psychology suggests that species from high-stress environments would struggle with social cohesion, Velshar said carefully. Bora's laughter sounded like rocks grinding together. You'd think we'd be too violent, too aggressive. That's what your textbooks say, yes? But you misunderstand the lesson of harsh worlds. When everything in your environment wants to kill you, you learn that cooperation is survival. Humans understand this. On Earth, their ancient ancestors survived not because they were the strongest or the fastest, but because they worked together. They hunted in groups, shared knowledge, protected each other. The same was true for my people, Bora continued. Our world is volcanic, with constant earthquakes and rivers of molten rock. A lone Krath dies quickly. But a community of Krath, working together, sharing warnings and resources, we survived. We thrived. When humans found our world and offered friendship instead of fear, we recognized kindred spirits. Engineer Day entered the observation deck carrying what looked like technical specifications on a datapad. He nodded to Bora, and they immediately launched into a discussion about reactor efficiency that was far too technical for Thalrix to follow. The ease of their interaction, the way they seamlessly worked together despite their vastly different biologies, was striking. You're wondering how we built the indomitable Admiral? Hagen said, drawing Thalrix's attention back to the hologram. The answer is simple. We combine the strengths of all our species. Krath are natural engineers, comfortable working in extreme heat and pressure. They designed the reactor core. Norday have perfect spatial reasoning from navigating their storm-racked world in near-zero visibility. They designed the navigation systems. Verak can process complex atmospheric chemistry calculations instinctively. They designed our life support systems. And humans? Thalrix asked. Humans are generalists, Yoon said with a slight smile. We're not the best at any one thing, but we're good enough at everything. We adapt. We problem solve. We coordinate. Earth didn't give us one survival strategy. It forced us to develop dozens. We can eat almost anything, live in almost any climate, learn almost any skill. That made us perfect diplomats and project managers for a civilization of specialists. The holographic display shifted again, this time showing the interior of massive construction facilities. Ships in various stages of completion hung in zero gravity, worked on by beings in environmental suits. Some areas glowed with intense heat where Krath worked. Others were frozen solid where Norday preferred to operate. Humans moved between all of them, coordinating, communicating, connecting the pieces. This is Forge Station, Hyun explained. One of 7 major construction facilities in Federation space. We've been building our fleet for 80 years, Commander. Slowly, carefully, making sure we got it right. 80 years, Thalrix repeated. You've been preparing for war for 80 years? No, Admiral Hedgen said sharply. We've been preparing to survive for 80 years. There's a difference. Survive what? Kriyoth asked. The room fell silent. Captain Heian and Admiral Hagen exchanged glances, some unspoken communication passing between them. Finally, Hyun nodded. Commander Thalrix, what do you know about the extragalactic void? Hyun asked. The void beyond our galaxy? Nothing lives there. It's too far between galaxies, too empty. Why? Because something does live there, Admiral Hodgin said quietly. And it's coming. The holographic display changed once more, showing deep space telescope images. At first, Thalric saw nothing unusual. Then Hayon enhanced the image, and he saw them. Dots of darkness moving through space, thousands of them, blotting out stars as they passed. We've been monitoring these signals for 12 years, Hune explained. They're ships, Commander. Millions of them. They consumed 3 dwarf galaxies on their way here. Now they're headed toward our galaxy, and they'll arrive within a year. Thalrix felt his blood turn to ice. The Council's deep space monitoring network hasn't detected anything like this, because your network is designed to monitor Council space and nearby systems, not the extragalactic void. Our network is different. We learned long ago that the biggest threats don't announce themselves. They come from where you're not looking. We need to warn the Council, Velshar said urgently. Yes, Admiral Hajan agreed. You do. That's why we revealed ourselves now, Commander. Not to conquer, not to threaten, but to warn you, and to offer our help. Because when that swarm arrives, it won't care about Council laws or territory disputes, or who's civilized and who's not. It will only care about consuming everything in its path. And you think you can stop it? Thalrix asked. Captain Hain looked out at the fleet assembled before them. At the massive vessels built by beings who refused to give up in the face of impossible odds. We're Deathworlders, Commander. Fighting impossible odds is what we do. The journey back to Council space felt longer than the trip out, even though it took the same 6 hours. Thalrix sat in his command chair aboard the luminous Decree, reviewing the data the Federation had shared with them. Sensor logs, telescope images, projected trajectories. All of it pointed to the same conclusion. Something massive and hostile was approaching the galaxy, and the Council had no idea it was coming. We're receiving a priority communication from Council headquarters, Krieth announced. They're ordering us to return immediately and report to a closed session. All data is to be classified at the highest level. They know. Velshar asked. We transmitted our initial findings before boarding the Indomitable, Thalrix reminded her. They've had ours to analyze it. I'm sure the panic has already begun. It was right. When they docked at the main Council station 3 days later, they were immediately escorted by armed security to the Council chambers. No debriefing, no medical checks, no chance to rest. The urgency was clear. The Council chamber was an enormous circular room with seats arranged in tiers, each section reserved for representatives from different member species. Today, only the highest-ranking officials were present. Chancellor Mervel of the Teshkari Dominion presided over the assembly. Her crystalline features, reflecting the chamber's lights and fractured patterns. Commander Thalrix, she said as he entered. Her voice was cold. You will present your findings to this council immediately. For the next 2 hours, Thalrix explained everything. The discovery of the Indomitable, the meeting with Captain Hayon and the humans, the revelation of the Terran Deathworld Federation, the existence of 7 civilizations from worlds deemed uninhabitable, the fleet of Class 15 and higher vessels, and finally the approaching threat from beyond the galaxy. The council members listened in stunned silence. When he finished, the chamber erupted in argument. This is impossible, one counselor shouted. Intelligence cannot evolve on Class 12 worlds. Our xenobiological models prove it. Then your models are wrong, another countered. The evidence is here. We have sensor logs, visual confirmation, communication records. We should have destroyed them when we first discovered their world. A third voice called out. The quarantine protocols exist for a reason. These Deathworld species are dangerous. They're offering to help us, Thalrix interjected. Against a threat we didn't even know existed. Chancellor Mervel raised her hand, and silence gradually fell over the chamber. The issue is not whether these beings are real. The sensor data confirms their existence. The issue is what we do about them. Counselor Rachin of the Pelshark Empire stood. He was elderly even by his species' long-lived standards, and his voice carried the weight of experience. We face 2 crises. The first is philosophical. For 10,000 years, Our civilization has been built on the principle that intelligence arises from stable, nurturing environments. That harsh worlds produce harsh beings incapable of civilization. If Deathworlders can not only survive but build societies that rival or exceed our own, then our entire understanding of sentience is flawed. More than flawed, another counselor said bitterly, it means we've been wrong. About everything. About which species deserve contact, which worlds deserve protection, which beings qualify as civilized. How many other species have we ignored or quarantined that could have been valued members of our society? The second crisis is practical, Narration continued. These Deathworlders have military capability far exceeding our own. If they chose to attack, we would be defenseless. They've been watching us for decades without our knowledge. They've infiltrated our databases, studied our weaknesses, positioned their fleets. Whether they claim peaceful intentions or not, they represent an existential threat to Council sovereignty. They also represent our best chance of survival against this extragalactic threat, Valcher said. She'd been quiet until now, but her scientific training wouldn't let her ignore the evidence. I've analyzed their telescope data. It's more advanced than anything we have. If their projections are accurate, and I believe they are, that swarm will reach our galaxy in approximately 10 months. We don't have ships capable of fighting something that consumed entire galaxies. But they do, Thalrix added. The Indomitable alone could destroy our entire defense fleet. And they have 17 more ships of similar or greater capability in just the one fleet we encountered. Admiral Hagen suggested there are at least 5 other fleets of comparable size. The chamber fell silent as the council members absorbed this information. Chancellor Mervell looked older than she had at the start of the session. Bring in the human, she said quietly. Thalrix was confused for a moment, then understood. If the Federation had been monitoring the Council for decades, they must have had agents in place. Spies or diplomats or researchers living among Council species, gathering information. The chamber doors opened, and a young human woman walked in. She wore simple civilian clothes, and her dark hair was pulled back in a practical style. She showed no fear as she approached the Council platform. Despite being surrounded by beings who could order her arrested or worse, state your name and purpose, Chancellor Mervell commanded. I am Juan. I've been living on the Council world of Pelshire for the past 8 years as a graduate, student studying xenobiology. My actual purpose has been to observe Council operations and report back to Federation intelligence. The casual admission of espionage caused another uproar. Juan waited patiently for silence before continuing. I know you're angry. I know you feel betrayed. But understand that we did what we had to do. The Council discovered Earth 400 years ago and decided we weren't worth contact. They judged us without ever speaking to us, condemned us for the crime of evolving on a difficult world. What were we supposed to do? Accept that judgment. Hide forever? Or learn everything we could about the civilization that rejected us? You could have made peaceful contact, Counselor Rochin said. Could we? Giwan challenged. Would the Council have accepted us if we'd arrived in primitive ships, asking to join? Or would you have seen us as confirmation of your theories about Deathworld species, too violent and unstable for civilized society? We've read your xenobiology texts, Counselor. The ones that say beings from harsh worlds are naturally aggressive, prone to violence, incapable of complex social structures. Would you have welcomed us? Or would you have reinforced the quarantine? No one answered. The uncomfortable truth hung in the air. We built our own civilization, Juan continued. Found others like us, created something that didn't need Council approval. And yes, we watched you. We learned from you. We even protected you, though you never knew it. 3 times in the past 50 years, we've diverted asteroid impacts that would have destroyed Council worlds. Twice, we've eliminated pirate fleets operating near your borders. We've been your silent guardians because we believed that life, all life, deserves a chance to flourish. And now, you want something in return? Chancellor Mervell asked. No, Giwan said simply. Now we're warning you that something terrible is coming, and offering to stand beside you when it arrives. Not because you've earned it, but because it's the right thing to do. That's what you never understood about Deathworlders, Chancellor. You thought harsh worlds would make harsh people, But harsh worlds make people who understand the value of survival, who know that cooperation is strength, who will fight to protect others because they know what it's like to face impossible odds. She looked around the chamber, making eye contact with as many council members as she could. The swarm is coming. You can choose to face it alone, trusting in your own capabilities, or you can accept our help. Captain Heon and Admiral Hejon are waiting for your answer. But understand this. Whether you choose to work with us or not, the Terran Deathworld Federation will fight that swarm. Because that's what we do. We survive. With that, Giwan turned and walked out of the chamber, leaving the council to deliberate their decision. 3 weeks passed in tense deliberation. The council chambers saw more emergency sessions in those weeks than in the previous decade. Arguments raged day and night. Some members wanted to accept the Federation's help immediately. Others insisted on building their own defenses, refusing to appear weak before these Deathworlders. A few extremists even suggested a preemptive strike, eliminating the Federation threat before dealing with the swarm. That last suggestion died quickly when Federation intelligence, RELEASED footage, showing the location and capabilities of all 23 hidden council military installations that were supposedly secret. The message was clear: we know where everything is, and you cannot surprise us. Thalrix found himself in an unexpected position. As the first council officer to make official contact with the Federation, his opinion was sought constantly. He spent his days giving testimony, answering questions, and trying to bridge the vast cultural gap between two civilizations that had developed in isolation from each other. During this time, he learned that the Federation fleet had not retreated to their own space. They remained at the border, holding position in a clear defensive formation, not threatening, but not leaving either, waiting for the Council's decision. On the 22nd day, Thalrix received an unauthorized communication. Captain Hyen's face appeared on his personal communicator. "I hope I'm not disturbing you, Commander. This channel is supposed to be secure," Thalrix said. Though he wasn't really surprised anymore. "It is secure. Just not from us." Yoon smiled slightly. "I wanted to speak with you directly, away from official channels and political posturing. You seem like someone who values truth over comfort. What do you want, Captain? I want you to understand why we're really here. Not the official reason about the swarm, though that's real enough. The deeper reason." Hayen's expression grew serious. 400 years ago, my ancestors looked up at the stars and saw the Council's ship in orbit. They were excited, hopeful. First contact with an advanced alien civilization. It should have been the greatest moment in human history. Instead, they were rejected without ever being spoken to, judged and found wanting based solely on where they came from. Do you know what that did to humanity, Commander? It broke something in us. For decades, we struggled with the knowledge that we weren't alone in the universe, but we weren't welcome either. Some wanted to hide, to pretend the Council didn't exist. Others wanted revenge, to build weapons and make the Council regret their rejection. But a few people, my great-grandmother among them, had a different idea. They said, if the Council won't accept us, we'll prove them wrong. Not through violence, but through achievement. We'll build a civilization so advanced, so capable, so undeniably successful, that they'll have no choice but to recognize us. Hyun paused, looking directly at the camera. That's what the Federation is, Commander. It's proof that the Council was wrong. That intelligence and civilization and culture and kindness can arise anywhere, even on worlds that try to kill you every day. Especially on those worlds, because adversity teaches lessons that comfort never can. And the swarm, Thalrix asked quietly, is real and it's coming. But it's also an opportunity. A chance for the Council to see what Deathworlders can do when we fight for something we believe in. A chance for us to work together, not as superiors and inferiors, but as equals, facing a common threat. Before Thalrix could respond, his communicator lit up with an emergency alert. The Council had reached a decision. The announcement came through official channels an hour later. Chancellor Mervell, flanked by the entire Council leadership, made the broadcast that would change galactic history. After careful consideration, The Galactic Council extends formal recognition to the Terran Deathworld Federation as a sovereign civilization. We acknowledge that our previous assessments of life-bearing worlds were incomplete and based on insufficient data. We formally apologize to all species that were overlooked or dismissed due to these flawed assessments. The words must have cost her dearly, Thalrix thought. Admitting the Council was wrong about something so fundamental. Furthermore, she continued, we accept the Federation's offer of military alliance against the approaching extragalactic threat. A joint defense force will be established, combining Council and Federation resources under shared command. We invite Federation representatives to Council headquarters to begin formal treaty negotiations. The response from the Federation came within minutes. Admiral Hagen appeared on every major broadcast channel. The Terran Deathworld Federation accepts the Council's recognition and alliance. We pledge our fleets, our technology, and our lives to the defense of all civilized species in this galaxy. The Swarm will find us united, and it will learn what happens when you threaten worlds that refuse to give up. 2 months later, Thalrix stood on a neutral station watching as the formal treaty signing took place. Captain Heon and Commander Murray represented the Federation. Chancellor Mervell and Councillor Rachon represented the Council. The documents were physical, written on actual paper in a nod to human tradition. Each page signed and witnessed as the ceremony concluded. Thalrix found himself approached by Engineer Dayand, the Krath named Bora. They were carrying drinks. Some kind of human beverage that Thalrix's database identified as containing mild stimulants. 2 new friends? Day said. Raising his glass, to survival, Bora added with his grinding laugh. Thalrix raised his own drinking appendage. 2 understanding. They drank together. 3 beings from 3 impossible worlds. United by circumstance and necessity. Over the following months, the Joint Defense Force took shape. Council engineers worked alongside Federation designers, combining elegant Council sensor arrays with brutally efficient Federation weapon systems. Council diplomats learned to appreciate Deathworlder directness. Federation warriors learned Council's strategic patience. It wasn't always smooth. Cultural conflicts arose constantly. Council members were horrified by Federation combat training that seemed designed to actually injure participants. Federation members were frustrated by Council bureaucracy that required 17 forms to authorize a simple supply requisition, but slowly, understanding grew. Council scientists who worked alongside Krath engineers came to appreciate
how high gravity
environments produced instinctive understanding of structural mechanics. Federation soldiers who trained with Council troops learned tactical coordination techniques developed over millennia of peacekeeping. Thalrix, promoted to Admiral for his role in First Contact, found himself commanding a mixed fleet. His flagship was Council-built, but his 2 most powerful escorts were Federation dreadnoughts. His crew included humans, Krath Norday, and a dozen Council species, all working together with surprising efficiency. 6 months after the treaty signing, the early warning systems activated. The swarm had reached the galactic rim. Admiral Hagen's voice came through on the command channel. All fleets, this is Hajan. The enemy has arrived. Defense Formation Alpha. Council ships take position behind Federation screens. We'll absorb the first wave, Nagatif Thalrix responded. Mixed formation. Council and Federation ships integrated. We face this together, or not at all. There was a pause, then Hajan laughed. Understood, Admiral. Together then. All ships, mixed formation. Show these invaders what happens when they threaten our home. The swarm ships appeared in their thousands, dark shapes against the stars. They were organic, twisted things that defied conventional design, driven by hunger rather than strategy. The first wave hit the combined fleet like a tsunami hitting a seawall. Federation ships opened fire with weapons that could crack planets, while Council vessels provided precision targeting data and coordinated their fire. The void lit up with explosions as swarm ships died by the dozens, but they kept coming. This is exactly what we built for, Captain Hyen's voice came through. The Indomitable was at the center of the formation, its massive guns hammering the swarm relentlessly. Every impossible world that forged us, every harsh lesson we learned, it was all preparing us for this. Hold the line. And they did. For hours, then days, then weeks, the combined fleet held the galactic rim. Council shields absorbed damage that would have destroyed individual ships, while Federation weapons punched through swarm vessels that seemed immune to conventional fire. Medical teams worked around the clock, with human doctors treating wounded Council soldiers and Council physicians, studying Deathworlder physiology on the fly. Thalrix watched from his command chair as his crew, so diverse and supposedly incompatible, functioned like a single organism. The human tactical officer coordinated perfectly with the Teshkari sensor operator. The Krath engineer and Council technician had developed their own efficient shorthand for communication. This was what the Council had been missing, he realized. Not just the military power of Deathworlders, but their perspective. Their refusal to accept impossible odds. Their understanding that survival requires cooperation. Their bone-deep knowledge that the harshest environments produce the strongest bonds. 3 months into the battle, the swarm finally broke. The coordinated fleet had destroyed so many of their vessels that the remainder retreated back into the void, seeking easier prey elsewhere.